Welcome into episode 536 of the Skate Podcast. I am Brian DeFelice, joined by Bridget Prue and Scott McLaughlin. And Bridget and Scott, the Olympics continue to get better and better. I know there was some conversation earlier on in group stage about how the Olympics were boring. I think that's to be expected in group play, but once the knockout rounds get underway, the competition gets closer and closer and the stakes get higher. And in the men's tournament, we've seen that on Wednesday. And in the women's tournament, we have a gold medal game a little bit later on today that we'll give some predictions on as well. But what are the two of you thinking about the Olympics so far?
I mean, I was thinking that it's taken over my entire life. It's like literally, I was recording a show for Nesson when Mitch Marner scored in overtime, and I like stopped talking to like watch it for a second, and then I went back to talking. I was like, I was a little distracted. If anyone wants to watch This Week in Hockey East, they can see whether or not I was paying attention at all.
I think a lot of shows that were live were pretty distracted yesterday.
I was talking about college hockey, totally unrelated. I'm like in the Northeastern Huskies, and I'm like, oh, okay, no, back to talking about being
Guys, on TV. Depending on what happens in the semifinals Friday, I might have to deal with this Sunday morning. I'm on EI 8 to 10 a.m. Then the gold medal game starts at 8 a.m.
That's
I'm
brutal,
like,
Scott.
I'm like I told Ken Laird, I was like, listen, like I'm not gonna be able to pretend I'm not like following the U.S. game. Like we're gonna be reacting to what's happening.
You need to be in your own little booth, right? Like you go sit in the production studio, and then you like anytime something big happens, you just run back in there and you just like tell them. But other than that, you're mostly just watching.
I mean, Scott, I feel like Freeze Pops and Terp can handle the turret for one day. No,
well, so that they're actually off. So it's me and John Lyons. Tom has like a family thing that he's gonna do Sunday morning.
But even John,
Terp's out in California. He's going to see like the final Celtics LeBron game. He's a psycho, but
even John, doesn't John do solo shows in the past?
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, maybe I'll just like hand it off to him.
Well, I feel like you have to write about the game though too. That's also why I'm kind of saying it.
Maybe. I mean, not necessarily, but I'll probably write something after. But there's also so the Bruins also practice, so maybe what I write will be something off like Bruins reacting to it.
Possibly. Okay. All right. Well, Bridget, why don't we go to you and start the opening shifts here? Let's get into all of it.
All right. Well, my opening shift has to do with the dramatic ending to the USA-Sweden game. A highlight that I have watched on loop since it happened. But I'm going to tell you, I wasn't that confident going into overtime because all of the other teams earlier in the day, a bunch of games went to overtime yesterday. Every team that was winning and then gave up a late lead lost in overtime up to that point. And it was very clear that Sweden had all of the momentum at that point. And I was like, okay, wow, this could be it in the quarterfinals. And wasn't feeling confident. And then Quinn Hughes was just like, I'm going to play the whole overtime, guys. I got this. And he really was out there most of the time. He had taken like back-to-back shifts. They had switched the forwards off, but he stayed out there. And he like waved off like the change. He was like at a face-off. Like he was just like, no, I'm staying out here. And then he scored. So it all ended up working out that he was just like, don't worry about it. And he took care of it. Like, honestly, I'm not going to say like fully single-handedly, but it felt like he could like have been the only guy on the ice and he still would have been able to make something happen. That's how well he's been playing in this tournament. And that's the kind of like, I don't know, like confidence, but like it's also kind of calm and a little bit nonchalant, which makes it interesting to watch his, just how he operates. But he's been a really important addition to the U.S. We talked about how he wasn't at Four Nations last year because he was injured at that time. Huge addition. He's been great. Obviously, the game was too close for comfort. 1-0 for a good chunk of it. First period was scoreless. We can get into maybe what went wrong for the U.S. in that third period as well. But my main takeaway, my main opening shift point is that Quinn Hughes is a game breaker by himself, and he's the one who gets it done in overtime to send USA to the semifinal, and they're going to play Slovakia.
Yeah, I believe Quinn logged nearly 10 minutes more than the next defenseman.
I'm
time.
okay. He can play the whole game.
Yeah, he played almost 28 minutes, and McAvoy was second at like 19 and a half.
Doesn't he just totally look unfazed by that? Like he just doesn't get tired?
Yeah, exactly. Like he just wants to be out there. And he just
guys, I could do this for days.
Yeah, he just totally controls play when he's on the ice. And like you look at like NHL analytics about like puck possession time, like amount of time the puck is on a player's stick, he always leads the league. Like just and generally blows away like everyone else. It's he wants the puck, he takes care of it when he has it. Obviously super creative and just makes things happen. And like it's like the game is played on his watch when he's on the ice. Like it goes at his pace. Guys move around him and like try to get open for him to find a passing lane.
Brian and Scott, have you seen Kicking and Screaming?
A long time ago, yeah.
This is my take on Hughes is pass it to the Italians, except for pass it to the Hughes. Just get it to them right now. They're playing so well. That's what I'm just get the puck to him.
Yeah,
get it there.
Well, and speaking of his brother too, like Jack, I mentioned last episode, I wanted to see him get some more ice time, and they did move him up to Thompson and Larkin's line, and obviously they cashed in for the first US goal.
They both assisted on the regulation goal
against Sweden. Like you need guys that can get to their skating game and make plays. I just think that Sweden is Sweden has a ton of speed and skill themselves, but compared to the US, it's like you knew they were going to try to bottle them up a little bit, and I just felt like you need some puck possession guys in a game like that. But random take by me right now, but it's indirectly related. Minnesota Wild are my cup pick right now. It's in big part due to the Quinn Hughes effect, but I just like their team overall. Even before they got Quinn Hughes, I like their team, not to win a cup. I think Quinn Hughes obviously is what puts them over the top for me. He's changed the dynamic of their team, but they were already a very good team. They had like 9, maybe 7 or 8 players in that game represented yesterday between US and Sweden. Yeah. It's not just Boldy and Hughes and Faber. It's Eriksson Ek, who's a solid, two-way center iceman, but you have Kaprizov, and I don't know. I just like their team. I think they can have a gauntlet in the Central Division playoffs, but they're my pick right now out West, and probably to win the whole thing, because I like the West better than the East this year.
It's like, I know I'm preaching to the choir and probably most of our audience too, but like the NHL's playoff format is just so ridiculous that one of Minnesota or Dallas is going to get knocked out in the first round. Yeah. And then only one of Colorado, Dallas, Minnesota can even get to the conference finals. And it's like, those are arguably the 3 best teams in hockey.
Yeah.
And they're going to kick the shit out of each other in the first 2 rounds.
I think we're all a fan of the 1 through 8, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty similar to, yes, Bridget, definitely. It's pretty similar to Atlantic in years past, right? Where, we'd be saying that about Tampa, Boston, Toronto, when they would be 3 of the top 5 teams in the standings in the regular season. Obviously, Florida entered the frame a little bit later on and have done what they've done. But yeah, I agree. I've always liked the 1 through 8 format. I just think that, you create different combination possibilities and whatnot. And I just think it's just more accurate, more representative of the league standings. You win first in the conference, you play the 8th team. You're 4, you play 5. I just think it's better that way.
Yeah, it's very obviously the more fair way to do it. And I think that the whole point is kind of missed when you try to do it the divisional way, wildcard way. Like, you're gonna get one divisional matchup in each division. Like, that could be how it plays out anyway, right? Like, you could have still gotten Bruins Canadiens without it being set up that way. And also, I just feel like sometimes those are not even the best matchups that you can see. So get rid of that. Also, 1 through 8 should be the way they seeded in the Olympics. 2, the U.S. drawing Sweden was really, that was a tough draw. And now that I almost feel like they got through Sweden and now they play Slovakia. It's like, all right, this might actually be more winnable. Like this feels like it'll be more winnable than the quarterfinal. Like you shouldn't be facing normally, unless there's an upset, a better team in the quarterfinal than the semifinal. So anyway, we had a group chat going about the weirdness of the Olympic seeding, and they reseed now, right? So, but they didn't for the quarterfinals. So
you brought up a good point too, Bridget, when you were talking about the Bruins and the Canadians, because ironically enough, when the Bruins played the Canadians in the 2008 playoffs, the 2009 playoffs, the 2011 playoffs, and a collapse against the Flyers away from the 2010 playoffs, all of those would have been in 1 through 8 format years. The only time I think they played in this new format was, I believe, the spring of 2014 when they played Detroit and then Montreal in the second round. So, they do these new playoff formats because they're trying to create divisional rivalries. It's like, all right, I mean, to your point, Bridget, like rivals played all the time when it was 1 through 8 too. It's it's not like whether it's the first round or the second, like it always happens that way. So I don't know.
It's your turn for your opening shift. So
I know Scotty looked like he had something he wanted to say, but I was gonna.
No, I'm good. We can continue with the opening shift.
You can wrap on this again later in the season.
Yeah. I'm sure. All right. Well, keeping it to the Olympics. So, the Canada-Czechia game, I said to you guys earlier, I was watching like a pig in shit, right? I love overtime hockey when a team I'm not rooting for is involved, right? Although I was torn because I was somewhat rooting for Czechia for the upset, but for the Goliath versus Goliath game we all want in the gold medal game, I was also kind of rooting for Canada.
I would have preferred Czech.
I mean, it depends how you look at it, right? But so anyway, I was watching that one kind of stake free, and then
I will say, Brian, the overtime was great. It would have been a travesty if it went to a shootout.
Agreed. Thank God none of these games did.
Yeah. Which is kind of a point that we hear talked about in the NHL and in college hockey too, is like, should you just make it a 10-minute overtime of 3-on-3? Because that would pretty much get rid of all of the shootouts. Like it's so much more likely there's going to be a goal in 10 minutes of 3-on-3. Also, you're actually watching hockey rather than just like a little skills competition, essentially. So
yeah. Skip Bayless was telling the NHL to take notes on Twitter about the 3-on-3 overtime format. It shows how much Skip's ever watched the NHL in his life.
You know what's funny about that too is it's like, because Skip Bayless clearly just does not pay attention to hockey. I'm like, I don't even know if he means like the NHL should have 3-on-3 for overtime, which obviously they already do, or if he thinks like hockey just should be 3-on-3, period, and like just get rid of 5-on-5 hockey altogether. I'm like, you know what? I don't know what he means, and I don't care enough to even follow up and try to figure it out.
I know. So I felt the same way.
Hey, maybe he's learning something this week. I mean, maybe this is a week where people start to get into it and learn and care about it, and there's going to be more. I think this is a good way for the NHL to grow their audience, because a lot of people get involved in the Olympics, like completely immersed in the Olympics. They'll watch the curling. They don't even know anything about it. They'll watch everything, including myself. And maybe they're like, oh, actually, Quinn Hughes is fun. Let's watch. I'm a Minnesota Wild fan now, or something like that.
Hopefully, moments like this and events like these can bring in new fans to the game, right?
Yeah.
No one's gatekeeping.
TJ Oshie brought in a bunch of fans when he did his whole bit in Sochi, and he's been a great analyst, by the way. I wanted to mention that too.
Has he?
I think so. Listen, it's not easy. It's not easy to go from never doing it before, and this is his first year. Like, for this being his first year, I think he's doing. I think he's doing a good job. I'll put it this way: his stories are good. I enjoy the stories. Maybe he picks the wrong spots to talk, but
I think he's struggled quite a bit, to be honest.
Really,
and I like TJ Oshie, but
well, in what sense, Scott? Because I thought, in my opinion, does he sound super polished when he's speaking? No, he kind of sounds casual. And I think that he's probably started sentences one too many times with, I played with him when I played with him, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
But outside of that, though, because it does bring some behind the scenes knowledge, but I thought he's open okay considering.
It's too much of that. And also he's gotten quite a few names wrong. Like most notably the Czech, I think this was the preliminary round, not the, someone obviously corrected him before the quarterfinal, but kept calling Andre Kasha Case. And it's like, dude, you played against him. Like, that's
maybe
that's
that was
like really not good.
But like but I mean, come on, he gets one Czech name wrong and you don't like him.
He's gotten several names wrong. Like, okay. I'm like, that to me is like one of like the more unforgivable things for a broadcaster. I'm like, you have a pronunciation chart, and even if you don't, like, it should be your responsibility to make sure you know it all, like, going in.
Some of your favorite broadcasters don't follow that rule, so just
I think it's really lazy when, like, Bridget, like, I know, like, you don't do this. Like, I think it's really lazy when broadcasters get names wrong. It's like, make the effort. Like,
yeah, I think
you know what I mean. Like, that's
it really is.
It's like it's borderline disrespectful.
Yeah, and it is actually the like the ground level of credibility. Like, if you don't get it right, then like you can lose credibility really quickly. So that's why you have to make sure you get that right. But I'm talking about his analysis. I thought he was good. Anyway, I thought you guys.
I think
that was a really good point.
I think his insight has been good. I think, Bridget, you said something earlier that it's true. It's, you know, it's to go from no experience to was it USA or NBC, whatever the Olympics are on. Yeah. It's like, but in the same breath, it's like, you know, to Scott, to your criticisms, it's like, do you blame Oshie, or do you blame the people that are putting him in a really tough spot for his initial exposure to an audience like that? I think that's like, maybe, I don't know. It's almost like it's a tough spot to be in if you're him. You're not going to say no to it, right?
I've worked with a lot of like first time color commentators, and it's really like he's doing better than what a lot of people do. I'll just put it that way.
Okay, but like, well, then fine, like, blame him or blame NBC or whoever. Like, it's the Olympics. Like, you got to have A teams on this stuff. And like, I know NBC doesn't have hockey anymore, so they're trying to put these teams together from other networks. But like, it's the Olympics. It's the biggest stage that this sport has. Mm. So whoever's fault it is, like, I don't really care. But like, I've been disappointed with NBC's coverage of hockey overall this Olympics. Like, I don't think it's been good enough. They haven't had enough games staffed. Honestly, like, having to resort to like that British call for like some bigger game, like for a Canada game, like you don't have a Canada game staffed. Like,
for me,
it's been pretty weak.
It's extremely frustrating for someone like me who's been trying to get in the door, you know, and I'm like, I would do this. I wouldn't charge you that much. I would just, you know, I would happily do this in any capacity. And I know a lot of other people that are, you know, broadcasters that are just, we don't get it. We're like, why don't just
that said, just so I can close on a positive note, Kenny Albert is excellent. We already knew that, like, but like his call of Hughes' OT winner yesterday, like, the guy, he rises to the occasion and just nails it.
He was amazing, but, you know, obviously that's not the thumbnail for this episode. It's going to be McLaughlin nauseous over Oshie.
Scott hates Oshie.
It kills me too, because we actually, I don't need to go in. There's actually a family connection between like me and TJ Oshie's mom. Like, we have like a very close mutual family friend.
Thanksgiving's going to be awkward then.
Like, you're elated and you're, wow.
Oh my gosh. What was my opening shift again, guys? Okay, yes.
Crazy day.
So I was watching Canada Czechia as a pagan shit, because I enjoy overtime hockey when it's not my team. Same thing with Finland and Switzerland. Another, you know, a great tournament by the Swiss, I thought. I thought they played really hard and had some good chemistry, but they had
the Swiss women made it to they almost beat Canada last game. So.
Almost. But yes, they had a good tournament as well. But you know, so that game went to overtime as well. Finns tie it down 2-0 with 5 minutes to go, and then win in overtime. But then the U.S. game takes place, and the team I'm rooting for has the game tied on them late in regulation, and now they're a shot away from going home in what feels like before the game has barely even started for them, and I'm shitting my pants. So, the Jekyll and Hyde nature of watching overtime hockey when you're invested in the team that's, about to lose versus not. And I guess my question to you guys is, was Wednesday's quarterfinal action the most entertaining slate of Olympic Games in one singular day in the history of the men's tournament? I mean, obviously, you'll look at 1980 and the Americans beating the Soviets and as a day, like a single game event, yes. But I won't, like, that's the cream of the crop, especially for American hockey. But I'm talking about multiple games having to carry the weight of a day. Was yesterday's action? Can you think of a better single day of action, Olympic hockey action, at least in the men's tournament?
I mean, not off the top of my head. I haven't gone back. Like, I didn't even really think to do anything like this. I don't know. Like, has there been a day where there were two great semifinals? Like, I don't. Again, nothing immediately comes to mind, but so I mean, I guess I'll say yes, but also it's like there haven't been. You can completely take out the last two Olympics because who cares? There are no NHLers. So now you're going back 12 or 16.
Laughlin.
Yeah, like now you're going back like 12 or 16 years. Like I honestly just don't remember what happened on individual semifinal or quarterfinal days. Like I'll remember the US games, but yeah.
Yeah, but the Canada Czechia game yesterday, not to interrupt you, Scott, but that game alone, right? If Czechia wins that game, I think the argument could be made that that's the greatest upset in the history of the Olympics outside of 1980. So, like, that alone to me, it already puts the stakes that yesterday had. I mean, Canada looked dead to rights.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sidney Crosby goes out in the midway through the game. I mean, they had to rely on a shot that was going wide, that Suzuki tip to tie it. I mean, Czechia, and obviously after the fact, they had 6 guys in the ice when they took the lead late. But I mean, that Canadian team, the idea of that Canadian team not advancing past the quarterfinals, can you imagine the infamy that they would go down in their nation's history? And I mean, the stakes were through the roof. That game alone. Then you add Finland, Swiss, and US, Sweden. Like, boy.
Yeah, I mean, both Canada and the US almost were out yesterday. Like,
and the
really
Finns
close to being out yesterday. So the thing is, when I was watching that Czech Canada game, I was able to watch most of it before I had to record my show, and the Czechs celebrated that 3-2 go ahead goal as if they had just won the Stanley Cup. Like, it was like they were like certain they were going to win that game.
It felt like they were.
I thought they were too. And the next thing I know, I'm looking down, checking my phone. I'm like, oh God, okay, there's 2 minutes left. Oh shit, it's tied. Oh, it's overtime. And the next thing you know, next commercial break, the game's over. It's just crazy. So, yeah, and hopefully Sidney Crosby's okay. That was a nasty looking leg bend that he had. And everyone knows I'm a Sidney Crosby fan at this point. It's the secret's out. So hopefully he's all right. I mean, obviously this is probably his last Olympics. So, yeah.
Yeah, I was watching. So I was at Warrior for the Bruins' first practice. Upon returning from break. So I was watching the end of that game up in the press box with several of the other writers, and we were saying, like, when Czech went up, I was saying, like, I don't know if it's not the biggest upset in Olympic history, right? Because, like, USA over Soviet Union 1980 would still take that.
Yep.
It's probably one of the biggest upsets, but even more than that, I would say that Canada team not medaling would be like an all-time disappointment. Like,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Quite possibly the single biggest disappointment in the history of Olympic hockey would be that Canada team with that roster not even medaling. So yeah, obviously they pull it out. The too many men thing. I'm almost like kicking myself for not. I didn't bother trying to like rewind my Peacock stream in the press box or whatever. But as we're watching the replay, I was thrown off because I'm trying to I didn't see or hear right away who scored the goal. So they show the replay, and I'm like, I know it's a left shot that scores. Hurdle blocks the shot. I see Pasternak and Nachos both on the ice. So I'm like, oh, Hurdle scored. Like he must have, followed up the play. He has a big block and then he scores at the other end. And then I, replay finishes and it's Palat. And I'm like, where did he come from?
Yeah.
The bench.
Because then you still see Pasternak and Nachos on the ice. So I'm like, no one changed. I was just like confused and I'm like, whatever. I'm like, maybe there was a line change like I missed. I was like, I don't know. So like I didn't rewind it, and then whatever, a half hour later that comes out, and I'm like, okay, yeah, now that makes sense. They just had 4 forwards on the ice.
And Drew Doughty was asked about it, and the IIHF had they were asked about it, and they put out a statement basically saying like we have the best of the best, and they just made a mistake and it happens. And Drew Doughty even said like none of us even noticed it until after the game either. So if we didn't notice it, like clearly something about that play was just maybe it was just the nature of how it so quickly turned to transition offense, but I don't know.
Honestly, like, and maybe like teams should make this a strategy or something. I think the biggest thing that like no one notices that the Czechs didn't know. So like no one makes an effort to get off the ice. Like they just keep playing.
Yeah,
and like I saw like one of like a former ref on Twitter. It wasn't scouting the refs, but one of those accounts on Twitter mentioned like, yeah, usually the biggest reason that refs call too many men, like the biggest reason they notice is either because the team that has too many men realized it and someone's trying to scramble off the ice, the opposing team realizes and starts making noise, or it just like is so directly impacts the play that you can't miss it.
Yeah.
But in this case, it's like everyone's just playing normally. The Czechs don't react at all. No one tries to get off. So it's like they almost just like tricked everyone. So I don't know. Like maybe if you're a team that just like has a bad change and you have 6 guys out there,
just go with
like
it.
I don't know, just try to finish the shift normally.
They Trojan horsed an extra guy out there by just acting like they were supposed to be there. But yeah, they can really make it.
I thought of a couple of other upsets too. Now, the 1980.
Before we go through these two, I want to just quickly do my opening shift. Like we can't.
Oh God, I forgot the banner was up there still.
Still here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I mentioned that I was at the Bruins' first practice since returning. So there are a couple notes there. Probably doesn't have to be the main gist of this episode. Obviously, the Olympics are a much bigger deal, but we did get to talk to Pavel Zacha, who skated in a red no contact jersey. Obviously, he was a last minute pull from the Olympics. It was just like sad, kind of like seeing the dichotomy of like him on the ice at Warrior in the red no contact jersey while this incredible quarterfinal between Czechia and Canada is happening that he should have been playing in. And he said like it was tough. It was a decision that was made between all of, him, the Bruins, and the Czech medical team all together. And basically like when he first suffered the injury, which was the January 29th game against Philly, he thought he was going to be okay. Like the first couple of days, he said it was trending in the right direction and he thought he was going to be better in time to go. And then it really didn't take, it was really like the 5th or 6th day that it started to get worse and kind of took a downturn and just wasn't getting better. And he said once he kind of got to a week and a half and there still hadn't really been much progress, he kind of knew like the clock had run out at that point. And he even said, he was like, I just wouldn't have been able to be effective playing like this. So
Did you see what it was?
He did not reveal exactly what it was. I know it's upper body. It was like a high hit from Delorier. So, I don't know if it could have been concussion, could have been shoulder, something like that. But he didn't say exactly what it was. But yeah, obviously like, pretty heartbreaking for him to miss out on that opportunity. And you can even play the game of like, could he have made a difference in that game yesterday? Like, obviously that game goes all the ways down to the wire into overtime. If you have one more legit top 6 NHL forward instead of, a guy playing in the Czech league, like maybe that pushes the Czechs over the top. But my one other takeaway from practice really was afterwards. I asked Sturm, like, because he said, like, yeah, you kind of look over everything and reflect during this time and reset. And I asked him if like any one thing kind of stood out in terms of adjustments he wants to make. And I had said this on our podcast going into the break. Like, I was like, they need to really zero in on the penalty kill and figure that out. Well, first words out of Sturm's mouth was the penalty kill more than anything else is like what we really looked at. And he said they're going to make some changes in terms of like how they're structured and how they play. He said basically like he felt like opposing power plays kind of figured them out and they weren't able to adjust on the fly and probably needed this break to really like reset it and try to install something a little bit different to use down the stretch here. So they've been, since December 1st, they've been the second worst penalty kill in the NHL. And yes, taking too many penalties is a big part of that. That is another thing Sturm mentioned. But also, like, even during stretches where they were only giving teams 2 or 3 power plays a game, they were still struggling. So it's not just that it's overworked. Like, they legitimately had breakdowns structurally that they need to fix.
Yeah, I heard him say too, like, there's a certain personnel also decides what systems you can play, including on the penalty kill. And he thought that maybe he needed to find one that suited the personnel that he had better than what they were currently using. So it's the same with, the guys that have fit into his 5-on-5 stuff. So anyway, yeah, it was following along with that. But the big piece of the day was the Olympics and the craziness
and I will say too. So I mentioned, I watched the end of that game in the press box at Warrior, but I watched part of the second period, standing next to Fraser Minton, talking to him, and it was funny because like they get off the ice for practice at like 11. They started at 11, so probably it was like almost noon. It was almost an hour-long practice, and I think I was like the first person Fraser Minton talked to when he got into the room. So I was like, "Hey, can I grab you for a couple minutes?" And his eyes are just glued to the TV in their locker room watching the game as the second period at that point.
Did he roll your eyes at you the same way Who's Nadinov did that one time you were standing in
No. Didn't roll his eyes, but he was like during commercials, and then I was like, that's fine. But I can tell you, Minton, good multitasker. I don't think his eyes left the TV, and yet he still gave good answers to my questions. So he was locked in. But at first he was like, so what's happened? So like I basically caught him up on the first half of the game to that point. But yeah, he said he hasn't missed a single game on the men's side.
And yeah, for reference, I'm just gonna say this because I don't know if everyone who listens knows he's from Vancouver.
Yeah,
he's rooting for Canada.
Well, it's not very obvious necessarily. Well, Scott, you can finish your thought there.
Well, I was gonna say, so yeah, I also talked to him about Macklin Celebrini, who's also from Vancouver, and they overlapped on the Canadian World Junior team a couple years ago. And Minton said, so they're 2 years apart. Celebrini 19, Minton 21. Minton said he did play against him a little bit growing up because Celebrini was so good he would play up a couple age groups. But Minton's younger brother played against Celebrini a lot. They were the same age group. So, yeah, he was like, it's not really a surprise because he's been dominant at every level, but it's still crazy to like see him having this good of a tournament. Celebrini had another 3 points in that Canada-Czechia game, and he leads the Olympics in goals. Yeah, he has 5 goals as a 19-year-old.
He's been amazing. Yeah, he's been awesome. And obviously he was great when he was at BU. Once the Hobie, he's been just such a seamless transition to the pro game too. And then doing it with Canada and playing. I mean, I know they switched the lines, but like he's had stretches where he's playing with McDavid, and it's just crazy. Good for him. It must be fun to be Macklin Celebrini over the past few years.
Definitely. Now, Bridget, you mentioned earlier how Minton being from Vancouver, so he'll obviously be cheering for Canada, which makes sense that he would be. But there's a Bruin that's also Canadian who said that he was rooting for Czechia. And I don't know if it was tongue in cheek. It didn't really sound it. It kind of, if it was tongue in cheek, it didn't sound obviously like a joke. I'll say that. And it was Morgan Geekie.
Because he's probably pissed he didn't make the team.
That was my first thought, you know.
Yeah, I think the combination of not making that team and then obviously having Pasternak on the Czech team too.
And also, Morgan's not really like a one-liner kind of guy either. So I don't know if that was.
He was serious. He was serious.
Not helping his chances of making it 4 years from now.
Yeah. On Zacha, had to have been the toughest practice of his professional career. To the dynamics you said, Scott, it wasn't just that, you know, he's practicing while his boys are in the Olympics and he was that close to being there, but like he's literally on the ice at the same time at Warrior that the Czechs are playing the Canadians and on the verge of upsetting them. So yeah, you definitely feel for a guy like that. You know, I wonder if he's there, do they beat the Canadians in that game? Maybe, maybe not. I feel like if he's there, they probably defeat who beat them in group play in overtime. Was it Denmark? No, it was
Switzerland.
Maybe they beat Switzerland, and maybe that kind of changes the dynamics of the knockout round. I don't really know, but in any event, yeah, that's tough for him to not have been there. But you know, he seemed like he was trying to be as optimistic as possible about it and say, you know what, like the good news is that because they're there, I'm not there, but at least I'm not missing, you know, 7 or 8 or 9 regular season games, whatever it may be. So, you know, he's trying to keep it glass half full. And I'm sure now that he knows that, you know, Czechia is, you know, officially eliminated and David's now coming, like maybe it starts to feel a little bit better for him as the Bruins season gets closer and closer.
Yeah. Can we talk about too, like we did this last episode, like go through the Bruins individuals in the Olympics, because Hampus Lindholm actually got to play in that game against the US because Victor Hedman sat on the bench the whole time, apparently got injured during warmups and didn't play, but sat there, I'm assuming as like a, you know, a leader, just have boys out there. But
do we buy that, by the way? Do we buy that he got hurt in warmups and had to miss the game? I mean, Jesper Bratt got his first shift in the third period. We know those coaches are they're a piece of work.
Been doing some weird stuff there, but he would be playing if.
What could have possibly happened that kept him out of the game? You know, in warmups.
He's had a lingering injury that he's dealt with this season.
Okay.
Well, no, but I think it was something different because they said he twisted something, and I mean his injury in the NHL season was a broken wrist, so I don't think you could twist your wrist during warmups. I don't know how that would happen, but it could have been a knee or ankle. I mean, I don't know, or like oblique, like a core injury. But I mean, I guess I do believe it just because I don't think Hedman would have been reduced to 7th defenseman, not playing a single shift. Yeah. Like I do think he kind of struggled in this tournament. I don't think he was great for Sweden, but still, like, it would be bizarre to make that change when Hampus Lindholm had not played a single shift before this game.
I know, but yet you have Jesper Bratt, who's probably your fastest forward that can generate offense, and he gets his first shift in the third period.
And then they use him in the overtime. And they're like, we need you now. Like,
I know. It's you know, some of these European coaches and how they're handling their NHL players has definitely been a common story throughout some of these Olympic games with not just Sweden, but Finland, like, and yeah, I don't know. It's definitely been a story. So, I mean, listen, yeah. I'm not going to say that Hedman, you know, wasn't hurt in warmth. I don't know. I had my doubts, but I'll keep it at that.
Well, and by the way, Bratt's third period shifts, his insertion into the lineup came at the expense of Elias Lindholm, who did not play a single shift in third period or overtime.
He wasn't playing well, so that makes sense.
No, and it was him and I think it was Wenberg that looked like they had maybe like a coverage mix-up on Dylan Larkin's goal. Coming off the face-off, they kind of like ran into each other, and that opened up the shooting lane for Jack Hughes to get that shot through.
And he lost the draw clean to Larkin. Yeah. But listen, the overall conversation you wanted to bring up, Bridget, about the Bruins players, I will say this. I mean, I had mentioned last episode that I felt like David Pasternak like he had some production in some key moments. I just didn't feel like he was dictating play the way that we know that he can. And, Scott, you actually mentioned that he ironically was among some of the better players in terms of, I think, generation, but it didn't seem it to me. And I'm not going to argue the numbers you gave me, but it didn't convince me that he was still playing, to the level he should be. I thought in the quarterfinal game against Canada, that's the David Pastrnak that I expected to see, from the jump. And maybe he just needed that extra motivation of the knockout rounds, and that's fine. But he was, he was outstanding in that game.
Yeah, he had one tough turnover early on. But then I thought, he was completely locked in from there. Obviously, scores the goal on a rocket of a one-timer on the power play, set up some really great chances. One that rang the post. Who was that one? Why am I blanking on who? Was it Travenka? I think it was Travenka. He set up with the seam pass that rang the post. But yeah, he was on his toes. He was on it. Like, I thought he played really well, rose to the occasion. I thought most of the top Czech guys did. Like, Nachos has had a really good tournament had a really good tournament now that it's over, but he was all over the place in that game. Ratko Gudas was terrific, like leading from the back end, which I don't know that I really would have seen coming.
He's like a bull. Like, he's just hard to move, that guy.
Yeah, and even jumping up in a way that I didn't really know Ratko Gudas could, and getting involved offensively. So, yeah, it was crazy watching that, because the first period was a legitimately evenly played hockey game. There was no, Canada's dominating territorially and Czechs are just hanging on. The Czechs were getting ozone time. They were setting up. They were creating chances.
Shots were pretty even too, weren't they? They're off by 2 or something like that. They're very close.
Yeah, and the Czechs take a 2-1 lead into the intermission, and Canada really turned it on in the second period and started to outshoot them and control play for stretches. But obviously the Czechs were still hanging in there, and then end up taking the lead. It was, that was, you come out of that and didn't feel like a game where it's well, Canada clearly deserved to win and they just dominated. It was no, they dominated in stretches, but that Czech team really, especially when you compare it to the first game in the group stage that Canada won 5-0 against them, that was just totally lopsided. You were these two teams are not even remotely in the same league. And so credit to the Czechs for improving throughout the tournament and giving Canada everything they could handle.
Did that Canada Czech game make you guys think at all that maybe Canada is more beatable than we thought they were? Does that change your opinion on how invincible they were because they almost got knocked out in the quarterfinal?
Yeah. These definitely. I think that, the Czechs played physical on them, right? I think that's, that's, you're not as good as the US team is. You're not gonna, they're right there with the Canadians, but you're not gonna outspeed and outskill them purely. You have to muck it up a little bit. And I think that, I think the USA intends on doing that. I also think that when if they play each other, the Canadians won't have seen a decor. Well, the Finns have a good decor too, that they'll see in the semifinals. But yes, definitely. I still think there's a part of me, and I feel this way about the US too, but there's a part of me that feels with retrospect now, with hindsight, that was probably the best thing to happen to Team Canada, because they did make it through and they really didn't face any adversity up until that game. And so, now when they play the Finns and, maybe the US or the Slovakians, whenever, whoever's in the gold medal game, they can sit there and say, you know what, we've now had our backs against the wall. We've now been down a goal late in the game and found a way to do it. And, so I think that actually, yes, it gives you a bit of a blueprint, but I also think that Canada is better off for it. Just like I think the US is better off for it. Just like I think Finland's better off for it.
Scott, do you want to answer that before I ask my next question?
Yeah, I didn't think Canada was invincible to start with. I thought they were the favorites, but I said on the last episode, I was like, I think that if it's them in the US in the gold medal game, I think it's just about a coin toss. So yeah, like I do think watching that game, it's like, yeah, they're beatable. Now you could also come away from that USA Sweden game and say the US looked pretty beatable, right? Yeah. Like they, that they couldn't bury Sweden. They controlled the game in stretches and obviously had a 1-0 lead for a long time, but that they didn't have a ton of chances to threaten to extend the lead. You know what I mean? Like I didn't think the U.S. like totally dominated that game either. I thought that was pretty evenly played too, and so I would say both of those teams feel like the other's probably beatable and they have a good shot. And by the way, like neither one of them better be overlooking their semifinal opponents, because if you're Canada, Finland's always a tough out. They always seem to punch above their weight class in international play. And the U.S. on paper should be way better than Slovakia, but that Slovakia team's been playing good hockey. That not that Germany's particularly tough competition, but they dominated Germany in the quarterfinals. Like they beat Finland earlier in the tournament. They hung in there against Sweden in the final game of the group stage. So I would not discount that team either. Like if the U.S. gets caught looking ahead and is asleep at the wheel, Slovakia could absolutely pop them.
And that was actually another point I wanted to bring up. It's like, okay, Canada didn't look invincible, but the U.S. couldn't generate. Like that third period was ugly for them. And 1-0, keeping a 1-0 lead, trying to hold on to it, is like, really, this team isn't good enough to score more than one goal. Like, come on, like this is theoretically should have been, somebody helping contribute and adding on to that. But I felt like, all right, well, are we going to see the same kind of thing? Like, Austin Matthews plays well in the first few games against easy teams, and then all of a sudden like disappears, or like certain players were quieter, certain players weren't as impactful. There's been times where it seems like the U.S. and like Kachuk and there's plenty of players that they playing those lesser teams, it's like they're just doing things at will. Like there was no stopping them. Well, you run into a more physical team of a roster of actual NHLers, and all of a sudden they don't look like they can just run by everyone and do whatever they want. So I didn't know if you guys thought there was any lines or players in particular that kind of were held, I guess not just held off the score sheet, because obviously most people were, but like knocked off their game a little bit, or not able to get to their game in that Sweden matchup.
I mean, that was my concern going into the game, was over the course of group play, you went up against a combined 14 or 15 NHL players between those three rosters that you face. And now you're going up against a Sweden roster that is all NHLers, and most of them NHL All-Stars. So USA had to kind of, they had to hit the ground running. And I felt like the first period was a bit of a feeling out process. I also just think, like, in terms of shouldn't this team be able to score more than one goal? I mean, you would, like, yes, but at the same time, it's like, to the point I just made, like, when you have tournaments like this where the two teams are stacked, like both teams are stacked, so the tides rise, and it's all of a sudden it's like watching an NHL game where like you have two teams that are having a 1-0 game because both teams are so good. I thought Austin Matthews had a really good near assist to Jake Gensel, driving the far left post on one transition play. But I wouldn't say anybody was really. The U.S. to me, like when you see guys running into each other, right? Like you take it, I'll take it. You take it, I'll take it. Like you start to see sometimes the lack of chemistry, right? And I think that comes out more so in a game against Sweden, where they're going to test that chemistry versus, say Denmark. All due respect to them.
Yeah, and there's been certain guys that have been good, I think, right along. I think Dylan Larkin, which I said this during Four Nations too, is very important for them. I thought Brock Nelson has been great. And I do think that this was a Jacob Slavin game as well. He was phenomenal, and without him making that poke check at the end, or like diving, falling down, like stick check that he made at the very end of the regulation, Swedes could have won it in regulation. And obviously Hellebuck being a big part of that too. But it became a very defensive third period where they did have to lean on that decor that we think is probably, maybe a little bit better than other teams. That gives the U.S. maybe an advantage there. But what they did was they didn't break in the most important moments at the very end of the game. So I don't know. I was impressed with some of the way they defended. The problem was their transition. So I'm not even saying like offensively the guys weren't getting chances, like because they had the puck in the O-zone and they just couldn't get on goal. No, like they weren't in the O-zone in that third period. Like they couldn't set up. They had a few moments where they got a little bit of a cycle going, but for the most part they were hemmed in. Every time they'd flip it out, wouldn't get deep enough. They couldn't carry it through the neutral zone. Like there was transition issues in that game that kept them from getting shots on goal because they weren't even in close enough. Like they weren't even in the offensive zone for a good chunk of that third period.
Yeah, they got too conservative too early. Like there were chances. And look, obviously, when you're protecting a lead, there's times you just have to flip a puck out. But there were times that I thought they had the opportunity to skate out and potentially make something happen, and they were still just flipping it out and like just giving it right back to Sweden at center ice, letting them regroup. And there was, I'm gonna guess that's gonna get highlighted on video today. I think they already had like they didn't practice on Thursday, but I think they had like a video session. So I would guess like that's going to be something they go over and guys will see that. It's obviously much easier to see on video, but yeah, like I don't know if that's lack of composure or just thinking you're being safe, but like they were doing that with like 7-8 minutes left in the game. And I was like, it's too early to just flip it out to the neutral zone mode. Like you got to still be trying to make some plays at that point. So yeah, so that's, I will say though, like US has been really good defensively. Like that they're not giving up. They're not giving up many great chances at all. Even in that game, like even with Sweden, possessing the puck in the third period, I thought in the D zone, the US was not giving up a lot of great chances. And it took an extra attacker situation and a perfect pass by Raymond and a perfect shot by Zibanejad to finally beat them. Like that's, like you got to be happy with the way the U.S. was playing defensively. And we got to mention too, like Charlie McAvoy, a big part of that.
He was great.
Continues to play a lot of minutes, was on for a lot of those D zone shifts, those D zone faceoff starts, sets the tone physically. Like everyone likes to talk about the Tkachuk brothers setting the tone physically. McAvoy does it as much as anyone. And he had 3 big hits in that game on, Eriksson Ek and then Landeskog and then Lucas Raymond coming across the line. Like, I think I said it before, I think he's just been rock solid, certainly not flashy. But in this game, like those hits add some flashiness to it. And I think people take notice, but I think he's been playing really solid defense this entire tournament.
Yeah.
No more bubble Chuck.
I know.
Yeah, true.
Yep, but I know some of this is Sweden's fault. They overpassed a lot. I thought
Philip Forsberg is going to have nightmares. He passed out of 2 really good looks.
Yeah, and like so then you are allowing the defense to get a stick in a passing lane and take the puck away and kill the play, which happened multiple times. So, but I know, Brian, you don't have a lot of time left. Were there some things that you're, I mean, there's plenty of stuff we haven't covered, but we don't have a lot of time. So what do you want to say?
Maybe we'll do an emergency episode at some point. If we need to around the later to talk about the gold medal game or something. But if not, I just wanted to circle back on some upsets. Right, we were talking earlier, and so it's interesting because the 1980 Miracle on Ice, which will always I think it'll be unmatched. It'll always be the greatest upset in history of not just hockey, but I think sports. You kind of feel like because they moved on to the champion or the next game against Finland, that Finland won silver and the U.S. won gold. That's not how the Olympics worked back then. The Soviets, despite losing in the semifinal game, like they still got a silver medal that Olympics. So yes, major upset, but to the point Scott was making earlier about like if Canada didn't get through to the medal round in these Olympics with this roster, it would have been a huge upset. A couple other upsets came to mind as well. I want to just give them some credit. The 1998 Czechia team, they won gold. They defeated Canada in the semis. They defeated Russia in the finals. Dominik Hasek went on an absolute tear, so like that deserves some credibility. And also, I knew there was an upset in 02. I couldn't remember, so I had to double check. I thought it was 02. Belarus beat Sweden 4-3 back in 2002, and I think that was in group stage. That was a big upset too.
Yeah. Also in that 1998, I think this was in group play. France beat the U.S. That was a big one.
They almost repeated that this year.
2006, Switzerland beat Canada. I think that was group play as well. So like some of them, there's been some in the group stage and in the knockout rounds. Yeah, I mean, you're right. Like probably maybe that Czech run in 98. But that they were upsets, but it doesn't really feel that way because they had Hasek. And it's like, well, yeah, of course Hasek can just steal an entire tournament. Like that was in his absolute peak of his prime, where he was not just the best goalie in the world, but like probably the best player in the world. So, yeah, and like obviously that Czech team had some, had Yager and like other stars too, but on paper, Russia and Canada were much deeper and better.
I mean, Canada had Gretzky, they had Bork. I mean, they had a very stacked team, and then Russia too. But anyway, So I just think that again, circling it back to the opening shift is like was yesterday Wednesday's quarterfinal action like the most entertaining, like single day of multiple games. In my lifetime, I can't think of one any better. I can't speak to before 93 as in terms of like sitting down and watching multiple games on like that was fantastic yesterday. Obviously there's single games that like were amazing. But that Czechia Canada game was a hell of a game. That was right up there. I thought that was a fantastic game. I was saying after the second period that how good of a game it was. And that was before the fireworks really kind of took off. Yeah. So I just think that, people talk about they compare the Four Nations a lot to the Olympics and they're saying how much better the Four Nations was. And it's like, okay, yeah, but you're saying that. And I agree. Four Nations was outstanding in every way. But like we're comparing it during group play of the Olympics. Like we need to get to the medal rounds and the knockout stage to really compare. If you want to compare, if you want to just feel like comparisons to Thief of Joy and enjoy everything, then go for it. But I just think that like so far in the knockout round, the Olympics have absolutely delivered this year.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, Four Nations was the semifinals because there's only four teams and there were the four best teams. So it was like we skipped right to it in that. So it kind of just cut to the chase. But we're approaching that now
with NHL rules, which obviously enables fighting.
Which means they didn't have to worry about getting suspended if they fought. Which obviously, if they could do that, I think that would make this. If there's a U.S.-Canada final, like even more on the edge of your seat, like are they is Tom Wilson and gonna do something stupid or I guess they still could, but it's an automatic ejection. Whereas if it was, and you don't want to lose your best players in the gold medal game. So like, if you're Brady Tkachuk and you're like, I'd like to punch Tom Wilson in the face, well, you better not fight him because you're out for the rest of the game. So.
Right. Any final thoughts from you, Scott?
No, I think I'm good.
Well, okay. U.S. women are at 1:00 today. We recorded before that. I'm excited for that. So I hope you guys have time to watch that too. I don't know what your day is like, but I will
be tuned in for sure.
I'll be watching.
I will be watching, and I talked to Katie King-Crawley yesterday just because that's a game I have this weekend, and she was on the team that won the gold in Nagano the very first time the women's hockey was in the Olympics. And she says this U.S. team is they're dominant and she thinks they're going to come away with a win. But yeah, I think that's kind of the sentiment from a lot of people is that US is better than Canada right now for various reasons, which we kind of went over last time. But there's always a chance for there to be an upset. As we know, as we just talked about with Brian's, last few comments of best comeback. So hopefully it all goes to plan for the U.S. women today, and Aaron Frankel gets a shutout, and they just ride off into the sunset with a gold medal. So
yeah, like I've seen people write like, is this the best U.S. women's hockey team ever? And I'm like, yes, it is. And obviously, especially if they finish this off right. But I'm like, the better discussion is like, are they the best women's hockey team ever? Period. Like, are they better than any of those Canadian gold medal teams? Because I think that's a legitimate discussion too.
Yeah,
like especially if they close this out with like a convincing win over Canada, I think at the very least that'll be the most impressive Olympics most dominant, most impressive any team's ever had.
Yeah, if they score 5 goals again too, like they've been scoring. They've been obviously they're currently on a shutout streak that's over 300 minutes. Like they haven't been scored on in over a week. So like it's crazy.
USA men's searching for their first gold medal since 1980. US women's looking for their second gold in the last 3 Olympics. So we will see.
I did have one final thought.
Yes.
People got to stop complaining about the game time. Like I get it. 8 a.m. Sunday morning, not ideal. The men's hockey gold medal game is always the last event before the closing ceremonies. Like that's just how it's always been. Now, if we want to have a discussion about like, should you move it to Saturday when it's in Europe or something, like I'm open to that. But like, that's always been, they put it there because it is like the marquee event, like the last thing that they want before the closing ceremony. So yeah, it's not great for us time-wise, but like there's a very logical explanation of why it happens. And I see people like, they got to figure out how to move it to a different time. I'm like, that's not going to happen. Like, stop. They're not going to have it. What do you want them to do? Have it during the closing ceremony? Like, they're not going to do that.
After, I don't know. But no, I may have complained about the start time because, as you know, I'm not the earliest riser. So I will that day, but
hopefully
get me out of bed before that.
Hopefully for the sake of the hockey world outside of Slovakia and Finland, of course, we have a US-Canada gold medal game because you want to see the best of the best fighting for Olympic gold. Thank you all very much for listening, and we will talk to you next week. Hey guys, thanks for watching the Skate Podcast. If you want to see more of our videos, visit our playlist.
Not in front of a screen? You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Don't forget to follow us on social media. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment.